LE411.1, explain the purpose of note-taking when investigating an incident. Note-taking is the process of writing down information concerning an incident, event, activity, or statement. Its purpose is to help you remember facts, complete an accurate report, and prepare for a deposition or trial. It also provides documentation so that other officers who become involved can quickly learn the facts of the case. Page 118. 411.2, identify the details of an incident and the basic questions your notes should address. Your notes should address the basic questions of where, documents the location of the incident, people, and evidence, which legally verifies jurisdiction. When, documents the date and time of the incident, which is a legal requirement regarding the statute of limitation and the right to a speedy trial. Who, lists and describes everyone involved or who may have information, complainants, victims, witnesses, suspects, including names, contact data, physical descriptions, and identification. What describes the nature of the incident, including details on property damage, theft, loss, injuries, or weapons used. How specifies how the incident carried out and what objects or weapons were used to commit the offense. Why describes the reason for the incident, motive, or evidence of intent. And actions taken, documents investigative steps, such as lifting prints, giving Miranda warnings, or making arrests. All of this can be found on pages 118 through 120. 411.3, describe strategies for taking effective notes. Take notes throughout the process of collecting information rather than waiting. Listen closely and pause the conversation to ask for clarification and write details while remaining aware of surroundings and officer safety. Correctly spell and accurately record names and details using legal IDs or sound out unfamiliar names to verify later. Adopt a consistent system of abbreviations. Example, circling first letters such as V for victim, S for suspect, or W for witness to avoid confusion. And using capitalized letters separated by slashes for identifiers like W, H, or F. Review notes before leaving the scene. Utilize sketches and organize notes with enough space to add new details. All of this is on 120 through 121. 412.1, describe the purpose of an interview. The purpose of an interview is to gather information from victims, witnesses, sources, or complainants to find out what occurred, who was involved, and other important facts. This collected information is used to develop probable cause against suspects and obtain permanent or oral written statements. That's page 122. 412.2, describe how to prepare for an interview. Plan who to interview, for what purpose, where to conduct it, and the order of interviews. Determine how you will record the interview and familiarize yourself with agency interview policies, procedures, and required paperwork. Check criminal justice databases to see if the interviewee is wanted and review available background information. Review existing documented cases or case facts like initial reports, dispatch documents, crime scene notes, sketches, and evidence. It's all found on 122 to 123. 412.3, determine if any accommodations should be made to the interview process. Accommodations should be based on the interviewee's level of education, intellect, experience, culture, language, background, and age. This includes arranging for interpreters, hearing assistance devices, sign language interpreters, or allowing the presence of caregivers and service animals. Additionally, if an interviewee is on the autism spectrum or their parent/guardian request it, Florida statutes require you to make every effort to ensure a mental health or a related professional is present. That's on page 123. 412.4, determine the order of people to interview based upon the incident. Generally, you will interview the complainant or victim first, followed by witnesses. Typically, the suspect is the last person you interview. You can also determine the order by prioritizing witnesses who are more likely to cooperate first. If an interviewee is experiencing trauma, wait until they are stable before conducting the interview. That's on page 123. And 412.5, develop specific interview questions to establish elements of the crime. Open-ended questions. Design these to encourage conversation and elicit detailed information, thoughts, and feelings. Example, what happened? Where did he throw the knife? Closed-ended questions. Use these to get specific information or clarify details with a direct response, usually quote-unquote yes or quote-unquote no. Example, did you see the knife? Avoid leading questions. Do not ask questions that steer responses to a specific conclusion. Example, avoid, your husband, Frank, hit you, didn't he? Instead, ask objective, non-judgmental questions. Example, how did she get injured? Okay, that's on page 124. 412.6, choose an appropriate and safe environment that is suitable for an interview. The location should be safe, out of the weather, free from distractions, and away from other witnesses, victims, and suspects. Whenever possible, interview each person in isolation to create privacy and build rapport. Conduct interviews immediately or soon after an incident at the scene. If the scene is too hectic or an interviewee is injured, prefer conducting it at your agency, station, or medical facility. Let's read that again. Conduct interviews immediately or soon after an incident at the scene. If the scene is too hectic or an interviewee is injured, prefer conducting it at your agency, station, or medical facility. Okay, that's on 125. 413.1, describe the 3 stages of an interview. Warm-up stage, establish rapport, introduce yourself, ensure physical and emotional comfort, explain the purpose of the interview, and remain professional and impartial. That's on page 126. Primary stage, obtain information about the incident. Start with open-ended questions to gather broad details, and use closed-ended questions for specific answers or clarification. And the closing stage, which is we conclude the interview by summarizing and reviewing information, asking necessary follow-up questions, verifying contact details, and thanking the interviewee for their cooperation. All that can be found on page 126. 413.2, identify inappropriate tactics to avoid when conducting an interview. Tactics to completely avoid include making threats, promising leniency, and creating physical evidence for use during an interview. Using these can cause admissions, confessions, and evidence to be suppressed in court and may lead to disciplinary action and civil liability. These are on page 126 through 127. 413.3, describe basic interview strategies and evaluating outcomes. So mirroring, which is match the person's speech patterns, gestures, or posture. Focus on them by turning your head, torso, and repeat or rephrase their responses to clarify details. Minimal encouragers, use brief verbal comments such as okay, go on, and nonverbal actions, nodding to show you are listening. Cognitive interviewing, recreate the event physically or psychologically by asking the interviewee to think back to the original surroundings, emotional state, and 5 senses. Evaluating outcomes, if the question of who, what, when, where, why, and how are answered, you have valuable results. If details are missing, ask follow-up questions or plan a follow-up interview. All of this is on page 127. 413.4, describe how to interview a victim of sexual battery using a trauma-informed approach. A trauma-informed approach requires a reassuring, empathetic, and non-judgmental demeanor. Acknowledge that trauma can distort a victim's perception of time and distance, meaning they may not initially answer accurately or in great detail. Offer compassion, be patient, focus on the victim. Talk to them directly, establish rapport, and reassure them that you are there to help and collect facts. That's on page 128. And then 413.5. Describe how to respond to interviewee behaviors. Begin by asking neutral, biographical questions, name, date of birth, employment, to establish a baseline of how they usually behave and function physiologically, body language, tone of voice, demeanor. Once a baseline is established, ask questions about the incident and observe any physical or behavioral deviations. Do not judge or stereotype behaviors based on preconceptions. Remain open-minded and relate to them as an individual. And 413.6, recognize common signs of deception by an interviewee. Recognize sudden physiological and behavioral changes when specific questions are asked. Physiological signs: increased perspiration, changes in skin color, dry mouth, or an observable increase in pulse and breathing rates. Behavioral signs: pausing, silence, speaking rapidly, changing tone, volume, foot, finger tapping, leg shaking, pacing, refusing eye contact, rehearsed answers, mismatched verbal, nonverbal responses, trying to change the subject, being overly eager to help, giving too much or little clarification, looking for an escape route, or asking for simple questions to be repeated. And we'll end here for this video.